Hey, everybody. I'm Dave,
And I'm John.
and this is the Coffee and Capes podcast, where we are a couple of enthusiasts who like coffee and love geek culture. And so we talk about those things.
Yes, we do. Always.
You have found us somewhere, somehow, but John, tell us where all the places we can be found.
Yeah. So if you're listening to us, you're probably found us on either iTunes or Spotify or some other rando podcast thing that somehow we wound up on. We're gonna have to have more coffee already.
Me talk pretty one day.
Yeah, me talk pretty one day. You may be watching us on YouTube. We're sure that if you are watching us on YouTube, it's only because we randomly change our backgrounds to keep you entertained and distracted from our faces. Also, if you enjoy us, you can follow us on Instagram at coffee_N_capes. We're also on Facebook at coffee_N capes. And then if you want to send us, drop us a line and tell us that you like the show or you have ideas, things that you want us to cover. And it can be movie related, it can be comic book storyline related, anything along those lines. Don't hesitate to shoot us an email at supers@coffee_N capes.com. So those are all the places they can find us, Dave.
Awesome. I'm so glad you keep track of all that because you're way better at that than I am. So before we get into our coffee of the day, I just want to say that we are recording this on Veterans Day. And if the people out there, if you don't know, John is a veteran. So John, thank you for your service.
Oh, thanks, Dave. Happy Veterans Day, everybody. And a big shout out to all my family members and friends who served this great country. And, good on you guys. I hope you're all doing okay out there, wherever you are, and life is treating you well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what are we drinking today, John? What's your coffee?
Well, despite the fact that I'm holding, you can't see it. I turned it backwards. A Stumptown coffee mug that I got. I'm not drinking Stumptown coffee. It's the holiday season. And while I'm a big advocate that Christmas stuff should not go up until way into December, folks, I do enjoy the Starbucks Christmas blend coffee. It is absolutely delicious this year. It's good every year. But this year it's a rare aged Sumatra blend. So really, really tasty. I'm enjoying it. And of course, as always, I've got my Coffee Mate creamer and then Ladybird Provisions coffee bomb in here, which, Dave, I believe you received some of those as well.
I did. I'm very excited and kind of funny, but I have a Starbucks mug, but I am not drinking Starbucks. I have the Jamaican Blue Mountain, which is the same coffee I had last week. But yes, for the first time ever, I am trying my coffee with a coffee bomb. So thank you very much to Ladybird Provisions for letting me try some of those. I'm very impressed first time through. I'll admit I was a little nervous because here's one weird quirk about me. I do not like the taste of butter. I mean, like I run away screaming. I really, really dislike butter. And I was afraid that, that would mean I wouldn't like the coffee bomb, but my fears were unfounded. It tastes really, really good. I've got the Happy Cacao. I can sound like Lightning McQueen or something.
Yes, very much so.
So it's very tasty, and I look forward to feeling the effects of being more mentally capable. Maybe it'll show up in the podcast. Yeah. I doubt it. If it doesn't, it's not Lady Bird Provision's fault. It's my own.
And big shout out to Nicole and Sarah. Nicole is a fan of the podcast. She listens to us, and I've known Nicole for a very long time. But thank you, Nicole and Sarah, for sending out the care packages. Really appreciate it. Super sweet, super nice. And if you listen to this podcast, we highly recommend, supporting them. They're a small business who are getting bigger, and that's wonderful. We love seeing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I look forward to trying some other of their products. It's great.
All
So thank you
right.
for that. Today, we are continuing our a little bit of a trend of reviewing recent movies. Today, we're going to talk
Yeah.
about Eternals.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, that's true. We are. And I mean, last week we did our first installment of kind of the history of, famous franchises, different faces. We did our first installment of that.
Yep.
But it seemed to just break up a series of movie reviews, starting with Venom and going into Dune, which was the first one we were split on.
Yeah.
And that's okay, Dave. You can be wrong from time to time. And
it's one of my favorite
okay,
lines.
people.
You are entitled to your wrong opinion.
Yes, you are entitled to your wrong opinion. However, this week, and we seem to be getting into a period of time where we're going to have a lot of movies coming again.
There's a lot. Yes.
Yeah, there's a pretty open slate. Spider-Man No Way Home, as we all know, is on its way. And if you believe what Tom Holland says, it sounds like it's going to be the Empire Strikes Back version of a Marvel movie. Very kind of angsty. But today we're here to talk about Eternals.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And
yes,
there's
we are.
a lot of hype.
A lot of hype, a lot of people have thoughts about this movie.
Yeah, it seems pretty divided.
Yeah, it does. And I guess I just want to take a second to remind folks that we are not professional movie reviewers. It's not our role. There are plenty of podcasts out there for that. We intentionally use that term enthusiast, that we love geek culture stuff. We're big comic book fans. We want these things to succeed. But we also have the capability, I think, of being critical when necessary. So
yeah,
it's kind of where we're coming at.
Agreed. Yeah, we don't do this professionally. Like, nobody's paying us for this. If they did, I don't think they're getting their money's worth. But we do this because these are the conversations that we would hold just at breakfast at the Pancake Cafe in
Shout out to Pancake Cafe in Naperville. We love
shout out to
place.
Pancake Cafe in Naperville. Best bacon anywhere.
Ever.
Hands down.
Honestly.
If you're ever in Naperville, Pancake Cafe, just get bacon, if nothing else. Like, if it's dinner time, order bacon. Are they open for dinner? I don't think they're open.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. Hence Pancake Cafe, not Steak Cafe.
Yes.
But yeah, so these are the conversations, exact same conversations we would have there. And we had that idea of like, we should do this and let other people listen to us talk, because we like hearing ourselves talk.
We do.
But yeah, we're not professional. I think with this one, there's going to be a couple of things in here, I think, that we're going to probably touch on, which we've talked about this before. And one of the things that I've seen within kind of the geek culture reviewer world and thoughts world is, again, and I don't know why this exists within the community that is historically all about inclusion, but lots of blowback against like Fastos and being a gay Marvel character on screen in a relationship with a kissing scene that apparently has set a whole series of people off. And guys, you don't understand your culture if that upsets you.
Yeah, it's true. Right. And well, in fact, I read an article this week that multiple countries are banning the movie because of the existence of that character and his married relationship and his kiss.
Yep.
And I would say, to Marvel's credit, they are not cutting those scenes, and it might mean the movie isn't shown in those movies, in those countries.
In those countries,
yeah.
And big hat off to Marvel for just taking that stand and saying, no, this is who we are. Like, we've been about inclusion for a really long time, and we're not going to stop that now, right? So, well done, Marvel. And whether you're a fan of hers or not, but I'm gonna give a tip of the hat to Angelina Jolie for taking a very vocal and very strong stance about, hey, get over yourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And like, good on you, Angelina.
Yeah,
good on you.
absolutely. One more that we're just going to talk about this movie, and we might say that we might try to give a 2-second warning before a huge spoiler, but there's going to be spoilers involved. So if you haven't seen it and are the type that gets upset if things get spoiled, well, pause now, go see the movie, and come back and listen to us after.
Yeah, that's a good thing. We should always make sure we include that at the beginning,
Yeah.
because we just avidly talk about it. And yes, it's not a question of if there'll be spoilers. It's just a question of at what point in the podcast do they show up, because we are non-linear in our conversation about the movie.
That's correct.
Yeah. So Dave, first quick take on Eternals for you.
My quick Eternal thoughts. It's okay. It didn't blow me away. I didn't hate it like some people seem to have. I think it aspires to be more than it's quite able to pull off. And there's some things I like about it. Some things that kind of left me meh. But I really liked the mid-credit scene, and I cannot wait to talk about the end credit scene, because oh my.
Yeah, I agree with you. Those are, I loved those. Marvel has a history of doing those things and blowing our minds with them, right? Excuse me. Blowing our minds with.
Yeah. No, speaking of this, like, yes, they have a history. How do you not know? We've had Marvel movies for like, what, 12, 13 years now? More than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a thing. And yet
when did the first Iron Man
people are walking out before the credits are done. Who's going to a Marvel movie in the year 2021 and doesn't know to stay? I don't understand.
There's so many movies now that have picked up on that little piece, right? That plan on doing more. But yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute for sure, because those were exciting and phenomenal. For me, I'm in the same boat, right? I went and saw it last night. Dave, you went and saw it over the weekend, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So in anticipation of this, like, I really wanted to make it to the movie. So it's fresh in my mind. But I thought it was kind of meh. Like you, I wasn't blown away by it. I didn't hate it. And as I mentioned last night in a quick text, that my take on it was, if I could sum it up, all the other Marvel movies felt like comic book movies made by people who enjoyed comic books. This one felt like a movie being made by an Oscar-winning director attempting to make like a cinematic film. Like it just didn't feel like it fully grasped the concept and idea of, like, in general, kind of what a Marvel movie is about. It had some moments, it had some characters that I really enjoyed. I thought Kingo was fantastic. Yes. And his valet, right? So I always forget his name, but let's look it up real quick because it's so important. So I'm gonna mispronounce it. Is it Kamal Nanjiani played Kingo, right? Absolutely hilarious. And he's been in lots of other stuff. He was in a movie with Dave Bautista a long time ago. And he's a phenomenal actor. He's got great comedic timing, which came out in this film. And Harish Patel, right, played Karun, his valet. And I thought there was a lot of heart that Harish Patel brought to the movie in areas where I thought it was lacking.
Agreed.
there were a couple nods within the film towards DC that I thought were very clever and also really cool that they did, with Phastos' son talking about how Icarus was Superman, and he saw him on TV and he was flying and the lasers were shooting out of his eyes and he wore a cape, and did the nod towards Superman in that way. And then referring to Karun as Alfred, right? Kind of like Alfred. And
that was a great moment. And I love things like this. So here's what that tells us. And here's where you're feel free to accuse me of thinking way too hard and deep and much about these things. But so yeah, we get the Alfred reference and the Superman reference, which to me says that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, DC Comics exist.
Yes, 100%.
That's pretty dang cool.
Super cool, right? That's super cool. And I think that's an acknowledgement by Marvel of how important DC has been and how important, like, you can't just ignore the impact that the other has had on where, like, the culture from movies to TV to collectibles to, you name it, the impact that each have had on the other, right? Like, it's huge.
For sure.
It's huge. You can't.
There's very much some Justice League parallels in the team of Eternals.
Yeah, I would say so. Right. So that was really cool. Kingo, Karun, that interaction, I felt like I could have seen more of that, and would have been very happy. And then there's some other characters that, and maybe this one falls into the category of trying to do too much too soon.
Well, yes, I agree. And I think in some ways the deck was stacked against this movie in the sense that basically nobody's ever heard of these characters.
Right.
Like even you, I don't know about you, but for me, I've been reading comics for 45 years or something, and I've read of the Eternals a few times, but I couldn't really tell you much about them beforehand. Before I saw the movie last week, I read the most recent, like 6 or 7 episodes of the most recent version of Eternals book, just to get some familiarity with the characters. Because other than Icarus, I couldn't, and Cersei, and Gilgamesh a little bit, because Gilgamesh and Cersei have in the 80s were Avengers, and so they were in Avengers comics then. So, but even that, like I didn't really know much, and if I didn't know much, like random person going to the movies is not gonna know hardly anything.
I'm probably a little bit more familiar because of having the Marvel Unlimited app for years now. A big fan of that app because it allows you to go back and look at and get caught up on things and maybe read some things that you haven't ever thought about reading before. You wouldn't pick up in the comic book shop, right? Yeah, those kinds of things. And I came across Eternals, and the artwork in kind of the first run of Eternals that I came across, which wasn't the first Eternals from like way back in the day, because I know that they were part of the Avengers at one point in time, and so there was some talk about them and probably some comic around that time as well. You can find it on the Marvel Unlimited app. So it was a more recent run, and I think just by looking at the art that it's by the same artist who did your favorite Thor run.
Right. Yes.
I don't remember his name.
I don't know how to pronounce his name.
But a beautiful artwork. Absolutely beautiful artwork. It looks
it's a very
painted.
distinct style. Yeah. Yes, it does. Yeah. It looks painted. That's a good way to describe it.
And even with having read that, like, I still didn't walk away feeling like I understood who the characters were. So going into the movie, like, I understood who Icarus was because he plays a very big part, but everybody else was kind of a like, well, I don't quite get it. And I think that one of the other things for me And I was talking to Rachel about this last night. And I understand that they were all created by, the Celestials. And it was cool to see the Celestials on.
Oh my gosh.
screen.
I think that's one of the high points of the movie is
Yeah.
the Celestials looked amazing.
Phenomenal. But the power set demonstrated by the Eternals, the way that it was brought to life on the screen, for me felt a little lackluster. Like they tried too hard to be, I guess the best word I can think of is fanciful.
Okay.
Right. Because if you look at the screen behind you, like the axe in Thena's hand,
yes,
is not like something that is light and comes out of like who knows where. It's like traditional.
It's a physical axe. It's not a
right. And there's some other,
not something she conjures.
Yeah. And there's some other things that were kind of, missing and whatnot. And I get that you take certain liberties within film, and that's great. But to me, I was like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Not
well, and what I was trying to say earlier was, it's got to build this entire world and introduce all these characters, and all of a sudden it's a team of 10. So somehow you have to introduce 10 different characters. Like that's a lot to handle.
And you got to kill some off.
Right. And it created some, a fair amount of exposition just to try to get you up to speed about who these people are. And I think the movie suffers a little bit from that.
To that point, I think, if we talk about the deck being stacked against it, the other piece that is, so when you look at it from that standpoint, it's not like building the Avengers or building the Justice League from like DC, where each of these characters has stood on their own for an extended period of time. And you can do like the standalone to bring everybody up to speed. Like there's never been, at least to my knowledge, there's never been like an Icarus standalone series that has gone on for hundreds of issues. Right. There's never been like a Gilgamesh, like, long running series, so that people within the comics world and even slightly outside of it can go, oh yeah, okay, I know who this is. And we can make standalone movies to build that bigger universe. Whereas with Avengers, you could do that. Whereas with, Justice League, they should have done that.
Right.
And they made the mistake of trying to do too much too soon when they could have gone a different route. With Eternals, they couldn't have done that. You had to do it this way.
Correct. Yeah. I think so. Let's talk about Cersei for a second. I think it was an interesting choice to make her the central character.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like that they explored that a little bit, that you would sort of expect Icarus to be the leader. And I think they explored that, especially toward the end, where Kingo says to Icarus, whatever you decide, boss, I'll follow you all the way. Like, and I think he even says, you're the strongest, you should lead us.
Right. Yep.
So I do like that they're subverting that trope that often happens in these types of stories, right? That they're putting the leadership role on a different type of figure. And Ajax, to start, like, she's got healing powers and can talk to the big space gods, the Celestials.
No.
Sorry, blanked on that for a second.
You're good.
Like, though, that's not a traditional power set for the leader of a superhero team.
No. Yeah.
So I do like that they were kind of undercutting some of the things that we have come to expect from this type of a team. I think that was really good. What's your take? So maybe I'm thinking of the wrong character. I thought Cersei had very different powers than what they gave her in the film.
Yeah.
I thought she was more of a mind control and like sort of vampire-esque, like drain life force from people.
Yeah, I thought it was something like I thought so too, and maybe I'm gonna have to go back and like read. And that was another thing, is I thought that the power sets were off somewhat, and they took some liberties there, and so it was, I was a little confused by that as well. Again, right? But I could be wrong because like I said, like I haven't read a ton. And what I have read, I haven't read enough times to have like a really solid memory. So if somebody else out there listening to this says we're wrong, like thank you, it's great. Like we'll like tell us where we can find the information and we'll go check it out and correct ourselves. But I thought she was different,
which is fine. I mean, they need to take some liberties. They need to make some changes for the film adaptation. We've seen that with other characters too. So I'm not against the idea of it. It just was yet another thing that the film for me had to overcome because I was expecting her to have powers X and she has powers Y. And I'm like, wait, what is this? And what can she do? And okay.
One of the things for me that I kind of like went rounds with in my own head was this had one of the deepest moral dilemmas presented out of like any Marvel movie yet, which is if you don't allow this to happen, billions of like potential life forms will never get born. But if you do allow this to happen, billions of life forms are wiped out.
Yeah.
Right. So you're trading one for one. And I thought it was an interesting dilemma to see how it impacted people on the team. And one of the things that I did enjoy was the very real and honest impact that it had on Icarus.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think you're 100% right about that. It's a very, I don't know if realistic's the right word there, but it's an honest reaction.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
That some of them would be like, of course we need to save the earth, and some would be, of course we need to think ahead to 7 generations and what's going to happen after, and some would be like, I'm going to choose not to decide. I still have made a choice. Thank you, Rush. But I'm going to just step aside and go be with my human family and just spend whatever time I've got. Like, I think essentially those 3 responses make sense. Like, that's how you get a group of 10 people, 8 maybe at that point, together. That's probably how it's going to go.
Yeah, right. You're going to have those that very much side with Icarus and understand and see a bigger picture at stake, right? And then you're going to have the ones that side with Ajax and Cersei and say that that there's all the people on the planet deserve an opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. And it paints the Celestials in a very different light than I think I had ever looked at them before. Right.
For sure. Yeah. I don't know if we've ever, if this has been presented, this idea of how Celestials are born has been presented in the comics. I haven't seen it, which doesn't mean it's not there. It just means I haven't seen it. So,
right. Yeah. I never come across it.
And the visuals of that whole thing were astounding. I thought
phenomenal.
Watching the Celestial, in the memory chamber thing or whatever, where it's coming, literally coming out of the earth,
so cool,
exiting an egg or something. It was intense.
Yeah. And then at the end, where in the big final battle, right, seeing the hand forming up out of the ocean and the head starting to come out of the water, and and I think that, and some people may look at this differently, but I think that one of the important takeaways for me was that Icarus really never changed his mind about what should take place.
Yeah.
Right. You could easily say that he did based on what happened, like joining the Unimind towards the end, but he didn't do that because he wanted to, he changed his mind and decided all the people are worth saving. When it did his flashback through his thought process, he just didn't want to hurt Cersei.
Right.
His love for Cersei is what led him to not, he couldn't take her out.
Right.
Right.
Yes. And I think that scene would have landed better if somehow there'd been better chemistry between Icarus and Cersei. Like I felt like it just was a little cold. Like I didn't say I didn't buy them as this like, whatever it was, 5,000 year relationship, like grand
Yeah,
love story. It just
I
didn't,
didn't.
it didn't land really.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing too, and Rachel and I talked about this, which we were walking out of the movie theater. Honestly, I probably could have done without the romantic relationship between the two of them. Like the the one, to your point, it didn't land, right? It felt cold. It didn't like make sense. You could have done something to tweak the end, for it to make sense. But it felt like, again, an Oscar winning director trying to make a relationship that you would find in an Oscar winning movie. And if you think about like the relationships that you've seen portrayed on screen throughout like comic movies, they're there and they're done in a way that like you see the connection, and that connection is
Mhm.
usually brought through like trial, tribulation, survival, those kinds of things, right? This one was brought about by time. And to your point, I think part of the reason that it fell flat is because we're expected to try and travel this 5,000 year relationship without seeing 5,000 years worth of relationship to building. So it just felt unnecessary at that point.
Yeah, and the scene fairly early on where Icarus says to Ajax, "I'll, I won't let my feelings for Cersei get in the way of something or other." And I remember thinking, what? Like, where did that come from? Like, it's the old show don't tell. Like, yeah, it's fine for the one character to say I love you to the other one, I have feelings for you, but it never really showed. It didn't feel, and I don't.
The relationship between Fastos and his husband was stronger to me
Yes,
than the relationship between Cersei and Icarus.
that's a
It
great point. That's a great
felt,
point. It totally was.
yeah, it felt more genuine, more real,
Yeah.
more love than the one that at any point in time that we saw Cersei and Icarus. And I'm going to be real honest, like I didn't need the Cersei Icarus lovemaking in the sand scene, like wholly unnecessary to me, like because it's not, I don't know. It just like I was like, meh.
Yeah, I mean, I think I read a thing from the director, and I believe her name is pronounced Chloe Zhao.
Yeah.
Um, and I've heard good things about obviously No Man Land and
She's a
the
phenomenal
Writer.
director.
I
Yeah.
haven't seen either of those. I know they're like really well regarded. Um, and I think I read something where she said something along the lines of, "We wanted to, fully express, fully embody, if you will, the love that these two characters share." So on that level, I'm fine with them having a pretty chaste love scene, but it didn't. Again, it didn't feel like it was paying anything off because we hadn't gotten to that point. There just was no spark there.
Yeah.
Like I really thought Cersei had a had more chemistry
With
with
Dane.
Dane.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like completely. And again, in conversation after the movie last night, I even stated, I was like, Dane felt so important at the beginning
Uh-huh.
and then was gone
Yeah.
and then was so
Oh,
important at the end.
right.
Right? Like
Right.
hugely important at the end
Yeah.
in so many ways. But like that to me, so I agree with you. There was just more chemistry there. There was more chemistry between Bastos and his wife. There was more chemistry between
Husband.
Kingo and Kulan, right?
Yeah.
There was just, to that matter, I thought there was more love between Gilgamesh and Thena than
Absolutely.
Cersei and
Yes.
Icarus.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that to me felt like an unnecessary like relationship. And you could have done the movie in a way that where that wasn't a piece of it, and you could have still ended it the way that you did.
Right. Because when you think of the kind of the sacrifice that Gilgamesh makes for Thena, it felt more honest. It felt more earned because you'd seen that love. And it's left sort of your imagination. Is it was their relationship purely platonic? Was it romantic love? It's not exactly clear, and I'm fine with that, but
Totally cool with
they
that.
definitely had, but you could, so without the romantic angle,
Yeah.
you could still see that there was love between them, and that's why Gilgamesh did what he did.
Yes. And you know
And
what?
that you could have done that with Cersei and Icarus.
Yes, you could have. You could have 100%. And you know, again, like there were other relationships. Druig and I think her name was pronounced Makari. The reveal at the end of those two and how much they cared about each other.
Yes, right.
That was like, oh, this feels genuine, right? But again, Icarus and Cersei, and I think what it was there was an implied sacrifice that Icarus made where he left the relationship with Cersei because he knew what was going to happen and couldn't handle lying to her anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's an implied sacrifice, but it didn't feel like a sacrifice. It felt like, especially the way that he reacted at the end.
Yeah.
That he was just, you know, doing his mission. Whereas the reality of like people willing to sacrifice for one another and doing something because of the fact that they cared, and their reaction towards caring for one another of the other character relationships within the film were much stronger. And centralizing it around, trying to centralize it around Icarus and Cersei, when there were so many other better relationships throughout the film happening, was tough. Like, it's tough. And Chloe Zhao, like, no knock on Chloe Zhao as a director. I mean, I've obviously directed millions of things, so I can judge.
Right.
But no, you know, no knock on her. She's won an Oscar. I've never won an Oscar. I've never made a movie. Right. Yeah. This is the closest I've ever gotten to directing anything. And I don't direct this. This is free flowing. So, but this, it just like, it felt like it.
Think, right. And in a similar vein, I'll say, I think it's possible Richard Madden, the actor who plays Icarus, just kind of is a little wooden. Like that might just be kind of his thing. Like, you know, I've seen him in, I'm not like I watch everything, but you know, I remember him in Game of Thrones. I remember him in is it Cinderella? I think he was in Cinderella. Yeah, I think he was the prince in Cinderella, and he just same kind of, you know, he's not bad, but maybe he's just not like great at emoting.
Maybe
like his tears at the end just didn't seem earned. I don't know.
I saw him in Game of Thrones. I thought he was great in Game of Thrones. I thought he, you know, but I would say that in this, like, he felt very stiff. Yeah. He felt, honestly, though, I'm going to take that back. I think he felt like a dutiful soldier.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. That's fair.
Like, a leader, like from a militaristic standpoint, like somebody who took their job. Yeah. This is my job. Everything else
this mission. Yeah.
Yep. Everything else outside of this, and everything else was easy to sacrifice in that regard. You know, he loved Ajax, but when Ajax had that conversation, like, he chucked her off the cliff and fed her to the deviants. Right. Yeah. I will say one of the things that I thought was super fascinating and I actually really enjoyed was the evolution of the main deviant when it took power from Gilgamesh and was able to vocalize like its emotions and realizations and everything else. And you were like, this is something I felt like I wanted to see more of.
Right.
I wanted to hear more from it. And you know, the battle with Athena was great. Angelina Jolie, I thought, really did a great job in her character.
Yeah, I wish they'd given her more to do. I wish they hadn't sidelined her so much. And
but I get, like, I guess you kind of understand why they did, because she went crazy.
Right, which again, that's another piece where I think there's the seed of something interesting there. Like, here's a person, like, of the 10 of them, as far as we knew at the moment, she was the one that remembered, like, and her memories were haunting her, and the memories of past battles were haunting her. And, you know, there's something interesting there. I think there's something that could be explored but instead it was sort of just, well, she has this mental, it was sort of used, I thought, as, well, she has this mental health issue, and so that's going to keep her out of the battle for a little bit.
Right. Although I will say, uh, she had one of my favorite lines towards the end when she gets ready to square off with Icarus, and Icarus is like, "You've never fought me before," and her response with a smile is like, "But I've always wanted to," and
Right.
she just goes right at him, and I was like, nicely done.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of reminded me of that moment that we talked about with Wonder Woman in Batman v Superman, where she gets that little,
Yeah.
when Doomsday really hits her and she realizes this is a real fight, she gets that little, ooh, hey, okay, smirk.
Um,
And Thena had a similar thing. And there's
yeah,
probably a lot of parallels between Thena and Wonder Woman too.
for sure. And one of the things I found super cool was the use of Makari's speed as a weapon, going from, there was the typical stuff of like, super fast punching and hitting from all sides. But what I thought was really cool is getting up to the sound barrier breaking point and using that like sound barrier explosion to like hit people.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the coolest uses of a power in the entire film for me. Like, that was great.
It was. Yeah.
Should we talk about the best part of the whole thing?
Yes, in just a moment. I just want to say one more thing about it. I think the druid character was interesting.
Yeah.
Um and I like how they played on that. So what little I've read recently of the Eternals books is the druid is kind of the anti-hero, or sort of set up to be the antagonist.
Yeah.
And they played into that, and then he kind of comes around. And so I kind of like that little redemption story for him, and that he turns out not to be the ultimate baddie and the ultimate betrayer in the.
I thought that was cool too. Yeah.
Yeah, I like
will
that.
say that as well.
And even just the whole experiment of, okay, you have these powers, what are you going to do with them when you're living for a long, long time? And it's like, I can't protect well, maybe I could protect everybody, but I'm going to create this community and protect/control this community. And is that, I mean, it really straddles the line, I think, between, is this an okay use of your power? And in his mind, he thought it was. But, another thing where like there's something interesting there, but just because the film has so much to do, it doesn't have time to really explore that greatly.
Yeah, I agree with you. His character, I liked his character. I liked his character's arc, going from the, I'm not going to let like these people tear each other apart.
Yeah.
And while this may be morally apprehensible to some of you, right? It's morally apprehensible to me that we don't use our powers to step in and save them from themselves. Like that was the take I got from him when he walked down the steps and, essentially like stopped everybody and made them all follow him. We assume out into the jungle where he created his own little area.
Yeah.
And he basically told him, if you're going to stop me, you have to kill me. And then when we see him again, he's essentially taken a group of people and kept them in the jungle away from society for a long period of time to keep them safe. Like in his mind, doing what he needs to do to keep them safe. And he's got very clear ideas about how everybody has failed this planet of people.
Right. So here's the question that raises for me. If he's willing to kind of break the rules and decide he's going to protect these folks and intervene when he's not supposed to, are you satisfied with their answer for why they didn't step up when Thanos came to the world?
That's a tough one, right? That's a tough one, especially, and here's the other piece of that. If Icarus knows what their mission really is, right? If he knows what that mission really is, he understands that Thanos snapping his fingers puts that mission at risk. Why did he not come out and join in on the fight with Thanos? Right. So and you could say, right, it's our job not to interfere in that way. But right, it's one of those kind of plot holes within the storyline that you're like, well,
Right. It reminds me of the in the DC cinematic universe where okay, Wonder Woman's done this amazing thing, and then she somehow goes away for 70 years and doesn't like, and nobody knows like what you've been doing. Like, and it's hard to retcon that back in.
Yeah, it's like the invisible jet. Why is there an invisible jet if she can fly and lasso lightning? You can't, it's hard to go back and explain that one.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Yeah.
also like the spider mobile. Why is he driving a vehicle that can climb walls if he doesn't need it? And he can go faster. There's just some random
Sure.
potholes that show up. I do
Right.
want to say before we move on into Dane.
Yes.
Right. So excited. There was an interesting idea brought up about if you caught the Kingo statement of Thor used to chase me around all the time when he was a kid, and now he won't even return my calls.
I missed that.
Oh, they were all sitting around having dinner at Gilgamesh's and Thena's place.
Yeah.
And they're talking about the Avengers. And
Right.
Kingo states, he's like, Thor used to chase me around Asgard when I would visit and he was a little kid. He goes, and now he won't even return my calls. Which, again, right, goes to the interesting statement of, like,
why?
How does that impact the Thanos thing?
Yeah.
Right? Because now the question begs, if Thor knows about the Eternals,
yeah,
and Thanos comes in and does this, why didn't Thor go and talk to the Eternals?
Right.
Or did he, and did they turn him down? Right?
Yeah. I guess that'd be the easiest way to explain it away. Oh yeah, he tried, but he didn't.
Right.
They didn't give him. But wow, I totally missed that. Daggone.
That's right. If you ever feel the need to go back and watch it, that'll be the reason to do it.
When it comes out on Disney Plus, I'll watch it again.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm paying to see it again. One other thing about Kingo that I really liked was his explanation of, he's got the movie posters. He's like, well, this is my great grandfather, and this is but like playing his own descendants.
Yeah.
Really reminded me of Highlander, and especially Highlander, the series, like the way they would have to like set themselves up to try
the
not
Bollywood
to draw suspicion.
dynasty.
Yeah. I thought that was
dynasty.
brilliant. I mean, everything about the Kingo character was fun and good.
Mm-hmm.
Other than his power was a little weird, like he shoots lasers out of his fingers or something.
Were they lasers or were they little like laser balls? I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway,
I don't know. Little mini.
And that was the thing. It's like, how powerful are they? Like it was. Yeah. Anyway, I think we should.
Before we get to the end credit scene, I think we got to do the mid credit scene.
Yeah, we got to do the mid credit scene first.
Yes.
If you are a follower of the comics, right, especially of the Thanos like family history storyline and how that's impacted like across the galaxy, across the universe, that mid-credit scene had a lot of impact or potential impact on the future of the MCU with Eros showing up.
Yes.
Right. And for those of you that don't know, Dave, would you like to explain who that is?
So Eros is Thanos's brother, who goes by the codename Star Fox.
Mm-hmm.
And he has some strength, at least from what I remember from when Star Fox was in the Avengers in the 80s in the comics. He can fly, he's got some strength, and he has like what Spider-Woman calls her pheromone powers. Like he has the ability to make people like him, sort of akin to the Eros, the
god of love.
The god of love. Yeah, exactly. Like, and he's very charismatic and supposed to be very handsome. And my almost 16-year-old son who saw the movie with me tells me that was Harry Styles that played him, and so they're trying to be a handsome, charismatic person. I'm too old and unhip to recognize him by sight, so it did not throw me off that was Harry Styles, because I didn't know and didn't care.
Yeah, I knew it was Harry Styles just because I had caught a little something about him being in it, and I saw on IMDb who he was, and I was like, oh, well, where's he showing up? At what point does he show up? So seeing him in the mid-credit scene, I was excited.
Mm-hmm.
It was not something that like I wasn't expecting to see at some point, right? But the impact that that could potentially have on, so it brings up multiple questions, right? Because Thanos is gone,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
Thanos has died in the comics so many times and then popped back up.
Correct.
And if Thanos is technically an Eternal and the Eternals don't technically die, are we going to see him again?
Right. And at least in some relatively recent run, Thanos' brother Eros was the vessel that Thanos used in order to come back.
Yes. Yep. 100%. Right. That was actually, I read that just recently. That was one of the theories like that was being posted around, was that because of that run in the comics, that this is, could Thanos be manipulating everything and coming back?
Yeah.
Which, okay, that would be pretty cool.
Right.
But are we seeing a, man, are we seeing a new, you know what, we got to talk about the end because it all ties together, like the thought that I'm having that I had, like
it does, but I think here's what I'll give Marvel credit for with this movie. They're just going for it, man. Like in so far in phase 4, they're like, we're going to give you characters you've never heard of and have no reason to care about, but we are going to go with it. And we're really going to expand this universe.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's sort of well represented with Star Fox, because nobody knows who Star Fox is, but unless you're old and read Avengers,
right? Unless you're a comic enthusiast,
yeah, right? And I appreciate that they're like, no, we're really going to expand, and and they set up perhaps what's the Celestial's name, Urshram, whatever. Like I'm going to come back and judge you, like setting that up as like a future big battle.
Yeah.
That's gonna
Huge.
Yeah.
Right. That's
So
huge.
I appreciate all of that they're doing. That they're really, Marvel's always playing the long game, I think.
Swinging for the fences.
Yes, exactly. So
Like they're
I
just
appreciate
straight up
that.
swinging for the fences.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I like that they're, to your point, like taking some bigger swings with phase 4.
Yeah.
And so Dane Whitman.
Yes.
Totally missed it at the beginning.
I did too.
Right. And then
Yes.
at the end, when he goes, hey, since we're not having any more secrets, my family has a complicated, and I just clicked.
Me too.
And
I
I
turned
went
to Josh. I was like, oh my gosh, this is Black Knight.
Yeah. Right. And I was like, I get it now. I got so excited. I was like, okay, I like, this is Black Knight, because if you've read the comics, and they just did a recent like 5-issue run of Black Knight, which was great. I read it and it was really good, really, really good. And he's got like a phenomenally strong like power set when he's got the sword. And then that final scene where he opens it up and there's the ebony blade.
Yes.
And just before he touches that, we hear the off camera, are you sure you want to do that, Mr. Whitman?
Mr. Whitman. Now, couple of things there. Right. So, couple things. I really like that they set you up with for that to be the ebony blade, with the earlier conversation about where Athena's like had the sword and like, is that Excalibur? Yes. Like kind of reminding you of that world, like kind of like, and I can't believe I missed that clue at the first time through.
Yeah.
And or even just this fact that his name's Dane. How many Danes are there? Like,
right. Yeah, just totally like at
too.
the beginning of the movie, just right over my head. I was like, oh yeah, whatever.
Yeah. But I got so excited when it dawned on me that this is Black Knight. And yeah, he opens the case and there's, is that what's on the blades? Is that symbiote? Are they setting up something with Null? Is there going to be a connection to and supposedly Gore the God Butcher, who has the all black sword, which is connected to Null, the symbiote god? Like, are they making connections to Thor: Love and Thunder? Because supposedly Gore is going to be the going to be the main bad guy in that. And
Yeah.
then the voice.
Who is the voice though?
Okay, so dummy me, my first thought was, oh, it's uh it's Nick Fury.
Yeah. Right. It's the popular theory out there is that it's Nick Fury.
And then my son said, no, that's the Watcher. I'm like, oh, that makes way more sense. And then I got super, super excited that they're totally bringing in the multiverse thing there, and that was Jeffrey Wright's voice. And then a little bit of internet sleuthing.
Okay.
Says that no, that's actually Mahershala Ali's voice. That's who's going to play Blade.
Right. So is that confirmed though, that that's whose voice it was? Because I saw the same rumor, right? And it goes alongside of like, it's Nick Fury, it's Mahershala Ali. I hadn't seen, anything about the Watcher, which would be cool. Right. But my question is, and this just kicked open like so much when I was like, well, if it's Nick Fury, because they're setting up multiple things, right? They've been setting up multiple things. Like we're getting a Thunderbolts movie. That's been like confirmed. There's going to be a Thunderbolts movie.
That's confirmed.
Or at least
a show or something.
A show or something, right?
Okay.
That's happening. So that's cool. They set up Thunderbolts. They're setting up the multiverse with well, they've already kind of set it up with Loki and with WandaVision, but it's going to go even, I think we're going to see a bigger version of it with Spider-Man No Way Home as they bring in like the Green Goblin and everybody else.
Right.
We know that we're getting a Secret Invasion show, right? With the Skrulls. I'm going to go a really long route here, right? Because we also know the Black Knight wound up being on the Avengers.
Yes.
Right. I hadn't thought about the Null thing until you just brought it up. But if we just kind of follow the logical steps within the route that they're going, there is who helps to take down the Skrulls in Secret Invasion? Norman Osborn's Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
Norman Osborn's Thunderbolts then become
the Dark Avengers.
Yeah. And then Nick Fury and everybody comes in, right? And remember, we see the symbiote take on somebody else to be in the Thunderbolts, right? And ends up, right? So there's a version of Spider-Man in the Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
But then we see Nick Fury, like they come back around. Maria Hill brings the Avengers back around, and the Avengers, eventually take down Norman Osborn and the Thunderbolts. So there's this long, like, possible route that this could be going.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that we're seeing a division in Marvel for kind of the first time. And what I think we're going to start seeing is I think we're going to see, for a while anyway, until they get to a point where they bring them all back together, I think we're going to see phase 4 split, and you're going to have your Earthbound, like kind of hero teams that we're aware of. Like you're going to have whatever happens after Spider-Man No Way Home. You've got Doctor Strange. The multiverse is going to be very focused around, like, we'll see the Thunderbolts. We're going to see, Shang-Chi. And clearly we're getting another Avengers team, whatever that ends up looking like. Right?
Yes.
Out in the universe, we're seeing the Eternals come into play. We've got Adam Warlock coming to Guardians of the Galaxy, right? So Nova film is possibly in the works, which would be phenomenal. You could go, while you're doing kind of the Dark Avengers, like Secret Invasion run on Earth, you could it seems like you could easily be headed towards Annihilation Wave.
Ooh.
In in the like MCU galaxy kind of world.
Wow. Yeah. And where does Blade fit in all that? I wonder.
Right.
Because we know we're getting a Blade movie.
We know we're getting a Blade movie, right? And we're getting a Blade movie. And what does that open up for that group?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we also know recently Blade became an Avenger.
Correct. Yes.
So now if there's no, like, it's very possible that Blade becomes a catalyst for kind of, helping to build a new Avengers. I mean, we know we're getting a Captain America film with Sam Wilson.
Yeah.
Right. I think they're setting up a young Avengers with Ironheart, Ms. Marvel, Kate Bishop, right?
Yes.
As Hawkeye.
Rumors that Miles Morales might show up in the MCU. Gosh, how great would that be?
I have theories on Spider-Man No Way Home. and with the Goblin showing up.
Yeah.
Did you ever read Ultimate Spider-Man? This series?
Some. It's been a while.
Don't know. And how Miles Morales shows up because Peter Parker's killed, right, by the Goblin.
Yeah. Yeah, that okay. So you're saying No Way Home might go super dark?
Very well could.
Yeah.
Right. It very well could. What if they're setting up the ultimate, there's so much that's
right. Oh, that'd be so sad if Tom Holland. I mean, I guess Tom Holland has to stop playing Spider-Man at some point, but daggone, that kid's good at it.
He's really good at it. So the Dane Whitman thing now kicks open that was included in this. And that we saw Star Fox show up. Star Fox is kind of a logical leap for the Eternals.
Yeah.
Right.
Dane Whitman's not.
No. And goes and sets up something different.
Yes.
Right.
And isn't the Ebony Blade, I mean, bringing it back around to Null, I have not gotten to the end of the King in Black storyline in comics. But isn't the Ebony Blade possibly one of the things that could hurt?
I'm not saying anything. You gotta finish reading it, and then we can talk about the Null and Black.
Yeah. Yeah. But I just, as Black Knight has been connected to so many different groups, right, over the years. I think obviously he's been with the Avengers some. Did he have a run with the Defenders for a while, maybe? And
he's been around.
Yeah.
He's been around, and he's one of those that nobody really ever takes super seriously.
Right.
But that connection to the Ebony Blade is really powerful.
Right. And is there a comic precedent for he and Blade hanging out?
I don't know. I can't. I'm gonna have to go look.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. But it definitely opens up tons and tons. There's so many things now that could happen in Phase 4.
Yeah.
Right. My hope is, because this is Eternals was the lowest rated movie in the Marvel MCU to date. Lower than Thor Dark World. That my hope is that and Marvel doesn't usually just scrap things because of a lower review, right?
Right.
They usually just go back and they're kind of the opposite of DC. They like to go back and say, well, we'll do it again, but how do we do it better? Right? How do we make this make sense for everybody?
Yeah.
So that my hope is that's what happens, right? Because there's a lot to be explored now, and to not get that explored, I think would make kind of taking this big swing that made landed a little bit every now and then. And I think we mentioned this in the beginning, but both of us, the movie was okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't great, wasn't bad.
Yeah.
It was vanilla.
Yeah.
Right. It whelmed. It wasn't overwhelming. It wasn't underwhelming. It whelmed. I think that should be our rating system now.
I like it.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're listening, we have just decided our rating system is now we were either underwhelmed overwhelmed, or we were just whelmed. This for me gets a whelmed.
Yeah, same. I was whelmed by this.
Yeah.
Overall, moments of overwhelmed, moments of underwhelmed, but overall whelmed.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of landed in the middle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the end credit scenes.
So good. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's probably not a great sign when the end credit scene's the best part of the movie.
Or it's just a sign of like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Right? Because I've done that so many times with like Marvel movies where you're like, this is amazing, and then it gets to the end credit and you're like, oh my god,
right,
what does this mean?
Yeah.
So I don't take that as a negative.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it yet, go see Eternals. Let us know what you think.
Drop a comment in below. Let us know if you agree with us or you disagree. What was your favorite part of the movie? Did you like the characters? Did you not like the characters? And remember, be kind. Rewind.
Be kind.
Exactly. Yeah, be kind. You can have opinions and be nice with your opinions, right? Be constructive. It's super easy to.
That sucked, man.
Yeah, like super easy to go down that road. Yeah, like you just say, hey, I was underwhelmed. Maybe we can get everybody to take on the whelmed, underwhelmed, overwhelmed like version, which just seems like, hey, it's a nicer way of saying I didn't really care for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we hope you're overwhelmed by our podcast. But
yeah,
even if you're not,
we'll take whelmed.
Yeah, take whelmed.
We'll take whelmed.
Yeah, even if you're not, you're allowed your wrong opinion. No, just
kidding. Yeah. And if you're underwhelmed by us, send us comments on how to help you
better.
Be overwhelmed.
Yes, exactly.
We're very open to that.
Help us be more whelming.
Yes, help us to be more
improve our whelming and our whelming metric.
Yeah. Well, Dave.
Awesome. Thanks, John. This was fun. Once again, happy Veterans Day to you and to all our veterans out there. And thanks for listening. Find us in all the places, Instagram and Facebook and YouTube,
iTunes and Spotify. Yeah. Please follow us.
Yeah.
We need the attention.
We appreciate it. So until next time, be well and we'll see you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.